You are now listening to the Serious Growth Podcast with your host, Leo Costa Jr.
Welcome to the Serious Growth Podcast. And on this show, this is where the truth is told, whether they like it or not, right?
Okay.
And I see here, as I mentioned at the top, that you've been homeschooling children and you figured out how to be healthy. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because I see in the bio where you went with that, but why don't you let us in on that? What does that mean that you figured out to be healthy?
Well, it all stems honestly from growing up with my mother. My mother was always overweight. She didn't move around a lot. And I saw over time, over many, many years, both as a child and then into young adulthood, how that affected how she felt about herself, but mostly how she kind of lived in the world. You know, at a certain point, she got out of touch with how her body felt. Even like she can't explain aches and pains, how they feel, and she can't explain how she even feels about her body anymore, emotionally, kind of. She's really out of touch with it. And I saw that happening, like I said, in the early days. And at some point I realized, boy, I did not want to be like that. So I didn't grow up in a home where eating healthy or being active was a component. So over time, it's just something I put in place for myself and my family, and learned how to cook and eat and exercise and be active, and figured out the ways that worked for me and then for my family as well. Because, you know, we're all different in how foods affect us or what's healthiest for us. And over time, I've just gotten to a point where I know how to maintain, I'm going to say, the right diet for me, as well as the right level of exercise and movement, so that I can maintain my strength, maintain a strong heart, not gain weight, and just generally feel really good. So that's what my process has been.
You said something I thought was kind of maybe not interesting, but I think telling your mom, it sounds like she just really just lost herself.
She did. That's a perfect way
because
to describe it.
If somebody can't explain aches and pains, it's like some certain, just like some general feelings that she couldn't connect with. Did she, it almost sounds to me, I'm not a shrink, but I did say at the Holiday Inn Express, I will tell you that. But it almost sounds like what you're saying is that she just disconnected so she didn't have to deal with the pain of it all. I don't know. It's hard to figure that out, huh?
No, I totally agree. I think for her, so it's just, my parents met in South Dakota, actually, and then they moved to Wisconsin. And both the combination of the family she grew up with and then moving away, even though I think it wasn't a healthy family, she moved away from it. She didn't have a support network in that. And I think also it's difficult, and it's always been difficult for her to build personal relationships or close ones. So she was kind of on her own. And it's not that my parents had a bad marriage, because they didn't, but they didn't know how to communicate, like many of us don't. It's nothing personal about them. We're just, a lot of us are in that situation. And so I think she was on her own a lot and just didn't know how to connect with other people. And she turned to food and immersing herself into raising her family and not moving and not taking care of herself as a way to just kind of move through life. And over time, like you say, she lost touch with herself and who she was and how to care for herself, honestly.
Yeah, and it's also, like we all go through stuff, as kids, and that's just life. Life does that to every one of us, right? So I get that, because, I went through some stuff too, but your body, it's pretty interesting though, you start building like a defense. I know I had some stuff that went on, and all of a sudden it felt like, I had people tell me this, it feels like you have like a screen, like a wall, between you and it was at that point, I was afraid of being vulnerable. And it took a lot of years, because my parents were in a toxic relationship. They ended up getting divorced. But you know something? I mean, it sounds to me like, to a degree, your mom's life was toxic to some degree as well, because she was having a hard time with just dealing with some basic stuff. So how did that, I'm assuming that all this, you obviously saw this and it had to have an impact on you, but you were somehow aware enough to step out and take a different path. How old were you when you decided to do something like that?
I'd say in my late teens, early 20s. When I was younger as a kid and stuff, I can remember different things that would happen to her. And I have no idea why I was able to recognize it, but I was able to recognize what was going on. So at some point she was seeing a physician who I thought was not, he wasn't inappropriate, but he just wasn't caring for her. He was prescribing lots of different stuff for her. And even as a kid, like at 10 or 12 years old, I could see, or I could feel that this wasn't quite right. But, you know, I didn't know anything. Nobody had taught me that. But there were just things, somehow I had an intuition or a way about it. So anyway, by the time I got to my late teens, early 20s is when I kind of put it together, and maybe not even consciously, but I just knew I didn't want to live that way. I wanted to have something different for my body and my future. And so I had to learn how to do that and what it looked like.
I think what was interesting about what you're telling me, I mean, especially at a young age, is that you were relying on your intuition, your instinct.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of that stuff, intuition and instinct as a kid is a lot of times beaten out of us. I mean, not literally, but, you know, you've actually, you don't trust that inner voice. And fortunately, you did. I mean, that's pretty interesting that happened, because it doesn't sound like you're in a real, a type of relationship that might do that, you know? I wonder where you got that from.
That's a good question, because I didn't have, you know, I only feel like maybe in the last 10 years or 15 years, really, as my kids have gotten older and I've kind of figured out what's going on, I didn't listen to my instincts. I didn't trust them. It's
hard to trust your instincts if you're not used to it. If somebody doesn't tell you, look, that's your inner voice.
Yes.
In my opinion, by the way,
I agree with you.
Like, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, but and tell me if you had a different kind of experience with this, but until you actually take that step out, and you know, maybe some people might think, well, how difficult is it to trust your instinct, even though that most people don't. But for me, it was like when I allowed myself to trust that instinct, even though it was counter-popular or counterintuitive, and then it worked. It's like, oh, wait a minute, there is another way, another voice there, right?
Yep.
Is that kind of how you felt too?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It took a long time to recognize it, but yeah, now I totally trust it, and I totally know to listen to it. Even if, you know, sometimes it might lead me astray, but I know I can trust it. Even if it's wrong, I can still trust it and believe in it. And I'll learn if it is wrong, and I'm still going to get something positive from it. You know?
And that's the thing that's important, is to trust it, even when it's, you know, when you, in most cases, would think, I'm not going to trust this.
Right.
But I noticed that, which I noticed that most of the time, your instinct is right and your intuition is right.
Yeah.
And that just gives you a whole different, or at least for me, it gives me a whole different perspective on when I want to try stuff or take a new path.
Yeah.
Because as you know, going down that path that you went on, it was out of the norm of the family that you were in. I mean, it's almost like going down by yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's still kind of that way. My immediate family, you know, my kids and my husband, they're all part of it, but my extended family, I wouldn't necessarily say they are. I mean, it's not necessarily as extreme as my mom's course, but it's still different. So,
because you say something here that you figured out how to do that. So like if you're talking to somebody who knows nothing about what it means to be healthy, how do you teach me, and how do you walk me through that process of figuring out for myself, like you've done for yourself? I mean, just tell us what you do. I mean, what does that actually mean? Okay, where did you start? I mean, I see here that you educated yourself, which I think is huge. You have to be, I tell people this all the time. I said, you got to learn how to think for yourself.
Yep.
And because if you're not willing to do that, and you put your hands in somebody else's, you know, your life in somebody else's hands, you have to be willing to live with that result, good or bad. Yep. But when you're not doing that and you're learning for yourself, what is it that you did, like when you were trying to educate to make your healthy, as you put it here? What was that step? If you could tell me, as someone who knows nothing.
It was, for me, I'm a reader and a researcher. So it was, I mean, I can remember picking up recipe books at garage sales and library book sales, or magazines. So, you know, this was, 30 years ago. So there was I didn't have access to internet. It wasn't like that then, as you know. So Those are
Imagine
really
saying that.
sources. Yeah, I know.
Imagine saying that now. It's like kids are going, "Oh, you got to be kidding me.
Yes.
No
I just got to
internet?
Google it. Yeah, I just got to Google it. It'll be there.
Were
So
there
now,
rocks and boulders that were your wheels back then or what, Mom?
yes,
My
yes.
goodness.
Yeah, run in
I
with
mean,
my
it's
feet
insane.
like Fred Flintstone.
Anyway, I'm sorry about
No, it's
Carry on.
okay. Just a lot of reading, and somehow too knowing that exercising and movement would get me there. And I really just started out with walking. That's really
Okay.
all I did was walk with my kids and try to find some time for myself in the day to get out and walk by myself. And having grown up in a home and a family where there's lots of prepackaged processed food, which I understood why my mom chose that. It was easy, and compared to the way that she grew up, in the 40s and 50s when everything was homemade, and then she wanted to try this processed stuff. I went back to trying foods that were, I want to say whole, as close to the source as possible, as close to
Right.
their original form as possible. And it literally took years to kind of learn how to cook that way and to find a way for me to exercise. So when I'm working with a client, it kind of starts the same way, by having them take a look at how they're eating and what they're choosing. And then also, if they're not doing any sort of movement, it's saying to them, get out and walk, take a walk every single day. And I start them off literally with 10 minutes a day. And especially if they're not moving, then it's 10 minutes a day, because it's about finding something that works for them, not just immediately, but in the long term, that they like. Because Leo, that if they don't like it, they're not going to do it. I don't want to do it if I don't like it.
Right.
And the same with foods too, is finding the foods that they like and trying to find a way to tap into healthier versions of that. And it might be teaching them how to cook, how to shop, the whole gamut.
So let me ask you this, because I'm coming to you from a background of a bodybuilder, and my approach as everything was about a kilocalorie. And this is not what, you're coming from at least based on what I'm reading here, you're coming from a different sort of, yours is all more about feeling and trying and feeling, as opposed to like me, I'm all about numbers. So, because that's how I get reproduce results, is based on a number, because my goal as a bodybuilder is to be able to produce and reproduce a result at will, which is very difficult to do. But I use those numbers to do that. Right. Okay, so if you're telling me, I'm saying to you, Nadine, that I am 40 pounds overweight, and so you're saying that, okay, I want you to walk 10 minutes, but am I doing that every day?
Yeah, ideally. Yeah, and if you're willing to do it a couple of times a day, and over time it'll grow in regards to how long, and bit by bit too, I'll add different components of movement. If you have a bike, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm doing that walking, and now then we're also going to address nutrition. So how do you advise me when you say look for ways to eat healthier? I don't know what that means, Nadine, because I've been eating junk food all my life, and that's all I know.
Yeah. So it starts off by you literally recording everything you eat for me, so I can see what it is. So in the first 2 to 3 weeks, it's putting it down, and as we meet weekly and talk about it, it's about taking a look at, I'm going to pick on something easy, soda. I can see that you drink 3 sodas every day, and so I'm going to say to you, Leo, the health benefits of soda are 0. But I understand that for you, it's a sugar boost, it's a caffeine boost, it's something you rely on. So I don't want to take it completely away, because it's going to totally affect your energy, even though I know your energy coming from this caffeine and soda isn't good, but still it's going to affect your energy and your motivation. So let's cut it down to 2 sodas a day. And the next week it might be 1 soda a day, or it's every other day where you take out all soda. Each client is different how we approach it, but it's a step-by-step process. And then it's also having the client learn what's working for them. So do they like to just reduce maybe what some of the unhealthy foods are and add healthy ones? Do they want to start to supplement the unhealthy ones with the healthier ones? And I'm trying to think of something. So they like hot dogs, but how about if we complement that with a chicken breast at lunch every other day? So instead of hot dogs every day for lunch, or 3 days a week, let's do 2 days a week with chicken breast and 1 day with a hot dog. Something like that. So it's similar to the soda, but it's all a progression, again, to find things that they like, to find things that fit within their lifestyle. That's a really key one, because not everybody has the time or the knowledge or even the desire to cook, or the time to go out and exercise for an hour or move for an hour. And so it's a matter of shifting all that. And then a third component of all this is mindset, and trying to figure out why. It really is trying to figure out why they've put themselves in a place where this is acceptable for how they take care of themselves. And for most of my clients, I find out it comes down to worthiness and being deserving of caring for themselves, of feeling better, and of taking the initiative to set themselves as a priority in their life. And it's not just about their physical health, it's other things too. And I'm not a therapist and I don't do therapy. It's not about that, but it's about having them be accountable to me, and me encouraging and reinforcing to them that they do have worth and they do have value, and take care of yourself, because who you are is important to many people in your life. And of course, it should be most important to you. And taking care of your body is one way to do that.
Yeah. Now, the thing that I'm speaking to you now as someone who's been in the industry, this is what I do every day for the last almost 40 years now, and it's been about in teaching people and motivating people how to get them in the best shape of their life. End of story. And that's been my whole gig, for that length of time. So in fact, I'm in my gym, my studio right now, where it's still going on. And here's the smart thing that I think you've done from my perspective is you haven't done what a lot of people do, is go from 0 to 100 overnight. Like go from a junk food diet to all of a sudden give them this perfect clean diet, because you know what? Because your body adapts to an environment, the minute, even if it's if going from a junk food diet to a really clean diet, you're going to feel worse in the beginning because your body's having to adapt now to that, but you would think logically, that, hey, wait a minute, you're going from a junk food diet to a clean diet, you should feel better immediately, and you just don't.
No.
So the smart thing that you've done is you've realized that, and you've given that person time to get used to that transition, which is really smart. And the fact that you've made it a place, because people are always looking for excuses to fail, especially when it comes to diet. In my view, diet is one of the hardest things to wrap your head around, because there's a lot of misinformation and that out there in the public, in the world of diets, they almost make it worse sometimes, because there's so many people saying so many things.
It's overwhelming.
And it's really not. It really is. And you can certainly understand why most people would just say, the hell with it. And I can understand that. But you're smart about that, because you're also making it, not only are you transitioning slowly, but you're also making it user-friendly and lifestyle-friendly to them, And that's really a smart thing to do. And then to tie in and say, look, you need to figure out if this is really worth it to you. Because also, Nadine, I can't tell you over the years how many times people are on a program and they're really starting to make progress, and they just drop off. It's amazing to me, because you would think that wouldn't be the case. It's like, wait a minute, all of a sudden you're seeing this great progress, but it's a really interesting thing. I don't know if you have to deal with that much with the people that you're dealing with. I deal with that still.
It's not. They don't necessarily drop out, but they get to a plateau where they tell themselves they have whatever reasons. It gets to be, I don't have any time, and that's a huge one. I don't have any more time for this, and it's really just an excuse to stop, because for whatever reason they're afraid to go further. I guess they're afraid of failure. So rather than setting up for failure, that I'm not going to lose that weight, or I'm not going to get that strong, or I'm not going to be able to maintain this when you're not around as much, Nadine. Rather than getting to that point, they just say, I'm going to make up this excuse and be done. And they don't have to
self-sabotage.
Yes, totally.
Really is.
Totally.
And not only are they afraid of failure, but they're afraid of success. Both those things are paralyze people.
Yes, because you
got to put yourself out there.
And then once you get to that success, it does change you, and it does change your life. And what does that look like? And who knows? None of us know for each of ourselves. But that is scary when we're so used to the way things have been.
So how do you overcome that with somebody who's like on that fence? You can feel it when they're starting to do that. How do you rescue them and say, wait a minute, you punch them in the head or something, or what?
It's
snap,
kind of
like
like that.
headbutt them,
Yeah.
snap them out of it.
It's kind of like that. The headbutt, though, is to them and to say, look, this is what I see. This is what I see is going on. And it's gotten to a point where you have to make a decision. Are you ready to commit to the next step? And I don't even see it, personally, I don't even see it as a next step. I just see it as to keep on going, kind of. But it looks like their commitment has gotten to a certain point and it's stopped. And their desire and their discipline even, and they have to decide they're either in or they're out. And for me, I kind of have to be, I don't know, it's not a parent role, but it's a coach role. It's just to say, you're in or you're not. And if you can't keep going, then I think our time is over, because I've tried several different paths and several different processes with you, and they're not getting you where you want to get to. And I'm not throwing my hands up at you, but at this point, it's kind of on your shoulders.
Well, it has to be. I tell people, I said, look, I can give you all the information that you need in order to get where you want to go, but you have to be a part of the process, all of the process, not just the first 90 days when it's still a honeymoon phase, and well, and here's the thing about, you're talking all these words, discipline, motivation, but I always, one of my things I say is motivation has to be greater than the obstacle, but it even goes beyond that. And you mentioned something, and it's discipline, because there are going to be days, and you know this, you go through these times where you're not motivated, and you still got to get your butt up and go to your regiment, whatever that may be, and that's where the discipline comes in. I almost think that the discipline side of it is almost as important, if not more important, than the motivation.
Oh, yeah. I even deal with that. So after all this time,
we all do.
Yeah, it's especially in the winter. I have a hard time getting up and getting out and moving early in the morning, and that's my time is the morning, because it's dark and it's cold. And literally almost every day I have to say to myself, okay, get up and go do it. Get up and go do it. And I have to push myself. And of course, I'm always so happy I did once I've done it. But discipline's a huge part of it. And I think too, part of what I'm trying to do for people is show them that they can have the discipline, and help them learn how to have the discipline, because at some point it is up to them to take that on, and to have them know that they can do it, that they do have the discipline, and they can push themselves to that point, because I think so many people too feel like they can't do it. But yet I firmly believe we all have it. We all do. It's just our way of finding it. How do we get there? And what's it look like? But we all have it. Totally.
Yeah, and here's what I think. I think what's also important is to let them make them understand, because I think people sometimes think, well, okay, Nadine, you're that type of person that has something that I don't have. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes what people need to know, those people need to know, look, I feel just like you do. I don't feel like getting out of bed. I really don't. And at some point, which you're done, you actually have to be that. You can't always be a yes person when you're coaching people. You have to be sometimes, and say, look, this is like, we have to draw the line right now.
Yep.
You can think about it for a couple of days, but you're at a crossroads type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's an interesting dynamic when you're dealing with people. It blows me away, and at the same time, it's taught me a lot about. They've actually made me a lot better, because you deal with stuff that you're just like. And another thing I think that I find is effective with people is I tell them, look, we are humans. We are going to slip. That's a part of the process. The difference is how you respond to that. In other words, you know how some people go, well, screw it. I blew my diet. Now I'm going to blow it for another 2 years. What the hell, right?
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I say, look, this is going to happen. It's not if, it's when it's going to happen. It happens to you. It happens to me. It still happens to me. The difference is I get on that, back on my trail, back on my regimen the next day. I slip, have a short memory about it, and get back on that path to your success. I think sometimes it's just little things like that, little tricks that can keep people going.
Yep. Not beating ourselves up over it. Like you, I tell them at the very beginning, you're going to have bad days, you're going to have bad weeks, you're going to have setbacks, you're going to gain some weight back, probably even through our process here. It might just be a pound or two, but still you're going to gain some back. And those slips will happen, but part of what you're learning is how to deal with them and move forward, just like what you were talking about, move on to the next day and it's all good, and it's all part of the process.
Okay, so let me get back to you again, because
Uh-huh.
this is interesting to me. It's like you're figuring it out. This is like your intuition. Okay. So how do you figure out like how much? See, people are not. Here's my opinion and my take on all this nutrition thing.
Uh-huh.
You are not a product of what you eat as much as you're a product of how much or how little you eat. And that's my opinion. Okay. Because I can tell you this, here's my view. I can put you on a junk food diet and I can get you in great shape.
Yes.
Because I am, if you look at the definition of a kilocalorie, it's a unit of heat that produces energy to the body. Okay? All food does that. And so my opinion is I know exactly through counting calories where I can get you, how I can get you, and where I can get you to this point and when. How do you know how much to eat? If you're figuring this thing out by feel, how do you do that? Let's talk about like the process that you use for yourself now. Like if you're wanting to drop weight,
right?
And you're eating healthier. Look, by just simply eating healthier doesn't guarantee that you're going to get in better shape, because people say this all the time. Well, I'm eating healthy. Well, said, how much healthy are you eating? You can't eat a truckload just because it's healthy.
No.
So how do you get from, if you're wanting to drop 10 pounds, how do you do that?
For me, it's a combination of, like what I said, you start off determining how they eat, trying to put healthy.
No, I'm talking about you.
Measure
how you're
for
doing
me?
It. Yeah. How are you figuring out, like, how do you know how much to eat of a certain food that you're doing to get a result that you're looking for?
I can't give you an exact answer because I've been doing it for so long now that I know kind of what I can consume. So, okay, I'm gonna go back a few years. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna say 8 years. I don't really know the time frame. Maybe a little bit more. Anyway, so I'd started going down the path for several years by that point, and I was moving regularly. I had put a healthier diet into place, but around the holidays every year we used to host a big open house, and have all kinds of friends in. And around the holidays too, there's more food, there's more alcohol. Yeah. It's colder, it's winter, you're busier, so maybe you're not as able to get to your own exercising, those kinds of things. And then the holidays would come and go, and I would do okay because I kind of knew my limit of what I could eat and drink without gaining weight. But I'd still have that desire for baked goods and bread and comforting winter foods, pastas, cheeses. And so January, February, March, I would keep on cooking those kinds of things, and we'd keep on eating them at home. And boy, come March or so, I could see I'd gained 5-10 pounds. And it happened year after year after year. And I notice it and I think, oh, I want to take care of this. So I would cut back on all the baked goods, on the bread, on the pastas. I'd put in more vegetables into my diet. I wouldn't necessarily up my exercise because I was still moving really well, but I would take out a lot of those starches and carbs. And each year I would lose it. Come, I don't know, I'll say July or August, it would be gone. And then the next year it would happen again. And finally, I just realized once I'd done this several years, I thought, I just got to stop this. This January to March of eating all these breads and baked goods and drinking more alcohol, all that kind of stuff. I just have to curtail that. And so I did. And it's not to say that I still don't eat the baked goods in the wintertime, and I still don't eat bread, or I still don't drink alcohol. I still do, but it's not at the level it used to be. Yeah. And I can still enjoy it. I can still go to holiday parties and have a plate with, several kind of cookies on it. But I also try to make sure that I have, how there's also the veggie platters and the other stuff that isn't necessarily baked goods. And I try to just balance it out and just make sure I'm aware of it and keep track. So, and if I do overindulge, like you say, the next day, it's okay. I'll just be more conscientious the next few days.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways to get a result. I mean, I'm kind of just giving you my, because for me, and I'm not saying my way is better than yours. I'm not even close to saying that.
Yeah, I don't take
it.
But
for me, until I got a handle on how important calories were to me, I would freak out and overdo, like if I was trying to lose weight and I wasn't sure if I went by feel, like what you're talking about, just simply reducing. I always freaked out about, oh my God, if I eat this, I'm good. Because I didn't really understand how that food really impacted me until I learned about the caloric intake of that food. I guess maybe that was my way of feeling comfortable with how I control the food rather than it controlling me. And I don't, I guess, and look, this is a part of you being adaptable enough to a clientele that says, Nadine, this scares me. I don't trust myself to go to that party and make these adjustments and feel good about cheating, if you will, or eating up, whatever you want to call that. It's like, how do you get somebody over that? Do you adapt in a different way, or say, look, here's what I want you to do, kid. When you go to that party, go ahead and do this and eat up whatever you want, but here's what's going to happen to you the following 2 days. I don't know if that's something that you do with that client, or,
Yes. You know what? I can do it. There's several things as part of my program is making it personalized for each person. So for one person, what we may determine is literally about how many calories they're eating a week to maintain. Or if they want to keep on losing, how many calories they're eating a week, and let's cut out this many. If that's a way that works for them, just like how you're talking about how it works for you, then that's what I'll put into place. Or the second scenario where you said, okay, go to the party and, have 2 pieces of cake and the burgers and the fries and everything, but no, then the next 2 days, let's set you up this way. And we can make a plan together. And the other part is planting the seed and the habit in them of paying attention to their choices and how they eat, and knowing that if they do make a choice to indulge over the weekend or at a party or whatever, that they also pay attention to how they follow up with that, or even the days before that, if they know they're going to overindulge or even just indulge, that it's okay to have that be a part of their life, but continue to be aware and make choices and be conscientious about it. And it's about training them how to do that so they can do it for themselves.
And that's the thing that some people just sometimes they need to really understand. Look, this doesn't just happen by accident.
No.
There's a process in everything that's out there that you have any kind of sense of control over. Because, it's one thing to be, this is what the real issue that I have with, I call these quick fix diets. Nutrisystems, Jenny Craig, and these types of diets. Okay, those diets are designed to fail because they don't have infrastructure. And they, it's almost impossible to be able to follow something like that over the long term,
Oh yeah.
And, so anyway, I just think that I think that you're going about it the right way, and that you're adaptable enough, and you can get inside that person's head to keep them on track. I see here that do you have you're a wellness coach. I got that, but you said my nurturing coaching centers on accountability. What does that mean?
Well, I like to believe I'm very nurturing, and it's focused on accountability. So a big part of what I'm doing for clients, besides partnering with them and coaching and guiding and educating and informing, is also making them accountable to me. So with weekly check-ins, and even during the week, there's texts or maybe emails where, I'm wanting them to report in on their positives, for example, because I think that there are positives that we can all achieve towards getting healthier, but it doesn't necessarily have to be some big thing. And I'm trying to think of something small. Choosing to skip a soda a day, even when it's not in the plan, but that's a positive. And I'm trying to think of something small. Oh, instead of taking a 10-minute walk, if they're just starting out and the plan is 10 minutes a day, if one day they take a 15-minute walk, that's a positive. That's a move in the right direction. That's definitely a win, because it's something they chose on their own. Anyway, it's all about having them be accountable to someone who's watching them and making sure that they're coming through, but then also feeding into their sense of self that they're productive, forward moving, motivated, that they can do it. And that's really, again, what it's about, is planting that seed that they can do it. And right now it's about being accountable to somebody.
Yeah, I have a fitness app that I work with people on, because in my studio here, there are some people here, they just can't get here. Yeah, I work with people all over the country, all over the world, actually. And I have this app that, and again, what I revolve my program around, because I think it's the three most important components is resistance training of some sort. Walking to a degree is a resistance training because your body weight, you're walking up and using body weight. So in that case, that would fit that category, if you will. Cardio, which walking is also a cardio event, and then nutrition. Those are the three components that my whole program has been based on ever since I started. And the problem with that for most people is that they don't know how to manipulate those three components coherently throughout a whole program. Most of them are usually better at the exercise part of it because nutrition is so darn confusing. And that's where they struggle. So that's how I hold people accountable. But when I'm a client of yours, am I going to log in? Because that's what my people do on this app, is they're accountable to the app as well as we engage with them through that app. It's you would think that you're working, it's the next best thing to having a personal trainer in the palm of your hand. That's the goal. So when I'm a client of yours, am I logging information down? Like every time I go out and do this program, I'm saying, okay, Nadine, here's what I did today or this week. Do they check in with you like on a weekly basis or something?
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't have an app. We keep a chart together. We can do a Google Doc, a Google Sheet, something like that, a Google Form together. And it's through, when we meet weekly, because we do talk on a weekly basis. And again, whether it's remote or when we're out of this situation, we can meet in person. And just finding out how their week went. And then, like I said, over the course of the week, maintaining some sort of level of contact through text or email, just to check in with each other, to hold accountable. Or we say, on Tuesday and Thursday of this next week, we're going to text because you're going to tell me how well you did with your previous day's goals for eating, for example. Or just like that, as you talk about resistance and cardio, ultimately that's where I'm trying to get my clients to as well, is a more well-rounded moving and exercise program. So it's just like that. How did you include cardio yesterday and how are you going to include resistance today? Let me know what it looks like. And we tweak it as we go. So
do you ever, are you engaging with your clientele? I know we're all pinned up, to a certain degree with what's going on. But in your program, do you actually engage with people? Like, do they go on walks with you, or you go on walks with them? Oh, is that right?
We exercise together.
Okay.
If that's appropriate for that particular client, yes. If they feel confident and good about what they've got going on, or they have a personal trainer that they're really enjoying and they want to train with, or they love going to the gym and there's certain things they love to do there and they have a routine and it's working, that's all great. It works for them. That's what I want.
I think to a certain degree, we're all feeling a hole for people, a gap, because just like on my app, I tell my people, I said, look, if you have a trainer that you're working with already, that's fine. And where is it that maybe you're, based on those three components that I'm talking about, where is it that you see that maybe you're not, because you'll be surprised, maybe not. There's a lot of trainers out there that don't really, they know they're not really 100% competent, and they don't know everything to the nth degree about those three components, which I'm really anal about, because how important they are in the way that you respond. So we can use that app, and like yourself, maybe your trainer is really good at the resistance side of this thing, but you need to work with them on the mindset and maybe the nutrition. So there's a way to work along with the trainers. You don't have to be at polar opposites on that. You're not like competing against them. The whole goal is to help that person get better, right?
Yes, that's exactly it. What works for them is all that I'm after, and for them to know that they can do it and they can maintain and get where they want to get.
Yeah. Now, do you do like big groups, or is it usually small groups, or is it all the above?
Typically it's one-on-one. That's really my preference. If I had a group of women or a couple of best friends or something like that wanted to come to me and say, hey, we want to do this together, then I would be happy to try to work something out. But personally, I love the one-on-one. So that's where it's at.
So let me ask you this now. You've been doing this for a lot of years. Is this something that you charge for? Are you doing it just because you love it? How does that work for you?
No, it's my profession. It's something that I charge for.
Oh, okay. So, and would you say that you are doing this full time? You have a lot of clients?
No. I'm very fortunate. A, I don't have to do it full time. B, I still have one child at home. a 16-year-old son. And so still focusing on his life and education and those kinds of things. And then I don't want to work full time. So I'm not.
That's okay.
I have the luxury of being not having to.
Yeah.
So
Well, because the reason why I asked Nadine is, I don't know if you know this stat. 95% of the people that get into this industry as trainers, as gym owners, 95% of us fail. I don't know if you know that. It's a huge failure rate. And when it comes down to personal trainers, just because I've been around them a long time, and I have mixed feelings about most of them, because I think there's only a few that are really legit out there, to be quite honest with you. And I understand why they don't make it. I get it, because this is not in your case, by the way. They're doing it part-time because they're not putting the right kind of time in to make it full-time. You know something? It's like any other work that you get into. You're going to get out of it what you put into it.
Yes.
And there's a lot of reasons why these people are not full-time. And I know that if they have their druthers, they'd like to be doing that, but it comes that with a price, right?
Yes.
And like you said, you're fortunate enough that you don't need to do that.
No.
But I'm not discounting the fact that if you really had to go out there and do that, I think that you seem to be a very caring person and someone who, certain trainers attract people because of how they are to begin with. And I think that I get the sense that you're that kind of person. You're the kind of person, if I came to you, I get the sense that we're in this together.
Yes.
And that's going to help me, and the trick there, as I've told my people, I said, I'm in this with you, and it means as much, your progress means as much to me as it does to you, believe me. And yet at the same time, I don't want you to be codependent on me. I want to teach you to be successful without me at some point. And I'd love to have you forever, but I don't want you necessarily forever.
No.
Because it's not good for you.
No. Yeah, exactly. I tell people I'm trying to work myself out of a job, really. That's
really true.
Yeah, for you to stand on your own 2 feet and feel great about it and know that you can do it. If you can do that, oh my gosh, just like what you're saying about feeling as good about what they're accomplishing, maybe even better for me, when they say, Nadine, I don't need you anymore because I got this, it's like, yes.
That's really the true mark of how good you are as a trainer, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I've always said that.
Yeah.
Goodbye, and I'd love to have you, but you need to go out and do this and when I see you being successful on your own, I've done my job. I'm done.
Yep. That's totally it. Yeah. That's all I want.
So really I'm sure that if you're out there doing it full time, you would certainly be successful as a full time trainer. There's no doubt about that. So where do you go from here? Do you have is there something that you would like to promote as far as maybe where you're going with your business, or something that you would like to promote on this show, that you have, that you would like people to know about?
Specifically, hire me. It's that simple, but more it's, at this point, as I'm meeting people and continuing to grow my business, and I plan on being in it for a long time, even at a part-time level, it's about being open to people who want information or want to talk. I'm happy to get on a phone call or a Zoom session just like this and talk about maybe something that they have questions about, or they want information on, not even about me, but about, I'm starting to get more and more people contacting me saying, as this whole thing is going down, I'm gaining a little more weight, I'm getting more sedentary, is there something that you can give me to do or give me some suggestions on? And I'm happy to take some time and just talk about little things that they can do to help them move forward. And I'm always happy to meet people and talk with people. So I don't really have something right now. It's just,
so as you're growing your business, I know like the way I grew my business initially was word of mouth. I still do. I still believe that's the best way.
Yep, I agree.
And then I leverage the people that I work with to get to their people. That's kind of how I build my business from the inside out. But is there a website or somewhere that they can contact you other than through a phone number, or how do they get a hold of you unless they're being referred by? I mean, is that all you're just basically building your business through referrals of people that you're working with, or would you like to expand that by saying, go to my website, or here's my phone number, anything like that?
I don't have a website. They can call me by phone. I'm on Instagram, or they can email me too.
What's your handle, if you will, on Instagram?
It's very long. It's my initials, N as in Nadine, P as in Pourier, B as in Blumenshine. So NPB Wellness Coach, all one word.
Okay.
NPB Wellness Coach.
There we go. There's your external marketing right there. I knew I'd get this out of you somehow, some way.
Yeah, that's all
well,
stuff I'm still learning about. It's marketing. That's
right.
Secondary.
Again, right. And this is all part of your process of learning.
Yes.
I've been down this road, and I feel you. I know exactly where you're at.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to tell you that I'm really happy that you came and talked to us.
Same here, Leo.
I like your style. I like your easiness, and yet
Thanks.
I can tell that you're intense in your own way about this stuff.
Yeah.
And I like your vibe. So I really appreciate you
Thanks, Leo.
coming on and sharing about what you do. I think it's really interesting.
Thanks, Leo. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate that you did.
Absolutely. Maybe one of these times again, if you got something else that you want to talk about that's earth-shattering, I'm all ears.
Okay.
All right?
I'll let you know. Yeah, and hopefully someday we'll meet in real life, in real person.
Yeah, we're not that far away. My goodness.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
No, that would be great.
It's bound to happen based on the laws of nature and calculation. I mean, it's a mathematical equation. At some point, we're going to run into each other.
That
Hopefully,
would be great.
Not a car crash.
I agree. I hope
Anyway.
not too.
Listen, thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Okay.
Good luck
Take
with
care,
your
Leo.
business.
Thanks. Thanks, Leo.
See ya. Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Serious Growth Podcast. For more episodes like the one you just listened to, subscribe to us on your mobile podcast app and leave us a review. If you'd like to reach out, you can find us online at seriousgrowth.com. Until next time, train smart and train hard.